Right. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Good morning, sir.
Right. I've been seeing not everyone submitting the assessment. Any reason why? Remember, these are weekly assessment, and you do get marks for these. So if you don't submit, you're losing the continuous assessment marks. They are given for a reason because if you notice, they are giving you, each one is giving you a very little thing to do, right? It's like a one-pager write-up. So please take some time doing that, because that's how you will get to your final assessment, your activity, right? So if you look at the CA number 2, let me share that with you. So this one is about conceptualizing, right? What is conceptualizing? So last week we looked at mobile application areas, like what are the applications and how people use it and things like that. So what is required here was you to look at all the available to-do application, because we can't be looking at all kinds of applications. So I thought we'll put some focus on one type, and you can be very creative because there are so many different ways of doing the same application, right? So couple of things you're supposed to do: define your app idea. What is the idea you're trying to get at? And then set clear goals and objectives. When you say goals, you need to find out the KPIs, key performance indicators. What do you think is a successful app? Is it the number of colors? Is it the number of users? Is it how fast you can get something done? Is it the most number of features? It can be anything. So what is it that you want as the KPI? And then, who is your target audience? Who would use this app? And also list of features, list of KPIs, and then identify all the features, right? When you say a scope, there are two things here. Now, you might have 100 features, but with the limited time, resources, you can't do all 100, which is fine. That's okay. So if you say out of the 100, you can do 20, that is perfectly all right. Yeah. So, but the thing is, if you thought of 100 features, now that's very good. If you say, okay, I can only think 10 and I'm doing 5, then you're not gone beyond certain numbers. Now, 100 is a random number. Now, don't start thinking about 100 features. I just took it randomly. So what I'm saying here is, when you are thinking, what we are looking for is how much can you think? How creative are you? Now, to think that, you need to go check out a lot of applications, right? Only when you check applications, when you install application, you will know, right? So if I ask you, how many of you have installed a to-do app on your phone? Can you raise your hands? How many of you in the class has installed at least one to-do app? At least one. There are so many. Okay, only Angela. Two. 3, 4. Okay, good. Right. Now, what do you think? Are they useful? Have you used it for something? Does it help you in doing your work? Angelo, what do you think? Was it useful?
Yes, sir.
What did you do with that? How useful was it?
Sir, I had my assignment for that, and they will help me to remind them.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This is like the calendar also, right? Now, calendar also has a way to remind you. So you can customize it. You can say, remind me before 1 day, remind me before 30 minutes, remind me before, let's say, 10 minutes, things like that. So that way you can plan your work, right? Now, I also use it heavily because I also do a lot of work. So I forget things. So what I do is I put it into my calendar, right? My calendar is full. So now this is my daily view. If I go to my weekly view, I mean weekly or monthly view, that's how I whenever something comes up, I immediately put it to the calendar so that I won't forget, right? So a to-do app now, that's my calendar month view. As you can see, it's fully busy. So we forget things and we use the technology to organize ourselves, right? So I thought something like a simple to-do app is useful for everyone. So why not use this? Okay, so that's on the assessment. Let's look at our presentation for the day. Now, before this class, I shared 2 links for you to have a look. This is about navigation, right? That's just one thing. So today we are going to look at usability. What do you mean by usability? It is the user's ability to do something done with the application, right? We might think, okay, anyway, the app is usable, you can do something. But it's not that. Yes, you can do it, but how easy it is to do it. That is usability. Now, under usability, there are a couple of terminologies we need to look at. We'll get into the details today. Okay. Now, there are, in fact, guidelines for applications, whether it is a desktop application or a website or a mobile application, they are essential. Why? That is what makes your application user friendly. And also, it provides a positive user experience. What do you mean by that? Can you also get negative user experience? Yes. Now, here's an example, right? This is sauce bottle design, right? The UI, UX, and usability. UI stand for user interface, UX stand for user experience, and usability is about how actually you are using the product. Now, if you have used sauce bottles, generally we keep the bottle this way, right? Upright. The cap is on top, the sauce is in the bottle. But if you have used the bottle, you know how difficult it is to get the sauce out. Now, in order to get the sauce out, you have to turn it the other way around and start pressing or pushing the bottle on top to get the sauce out, right? Now, user experience is about understanding user's problem, and you design the bottle in a way so that you can keep it the cap down. So when you get the bottle, the sauce is already near the cap. You open it and then squeeze it, the sauce comes out. But the problem is, okay, that's a very nice design, but how useful it is? Are there any issues? Now, if someone try to get the sauce out by opening the cap, if the whole thing spills out, okay, then that's a bad experience. The concept is good. Design is very nice because if you look at the bottle cap, it's wider now, but the real experience may be very bad. So a great designer looks at everything. What is the problem of the user? What is the problem of the product? How to make it easy to use? And then also how practical that is, right? The practicality is also Very important. So we can say this for even IT. When you are developing a software application, whether it is a desktop or web, when we are developing a website, as well as when you are developing a mobile app. Is it user friendly? Is it useful? Is it easy to use? Right? Those are some of the things we'll be looking at. So on this, there are a couple of topics we'll be discussing today. Number one is simplify the navigation. What does that mean? What is navigation? Navigation is where you start the application and go to a place where you can get something done, right? So what are the things we need to look at here? It should be straightforward and intuitive. What do you mean by intuitive? අපි සිංහලෙන් කියනවා ඉව කියලා. කොහොමද අපි ඉවකින් දැනගන්නේ ඊළඟට මොකද්ද කරන්න යන්නේ කියන එක? How do you know without any effort figuring out what to do next, right? And then in order to do that, limit the number of menu items. Now you might see on desktop application the menu is huge. So how do you control that? How do you make it minimum, but at the same time give them the ability to do something, whatever they want to do, right? And items in the menu, if you have a drop down or a side menu or something, don't keep too many things in the menu, number one. And if you have sub menus, make sure it is also very minimal. Don't get into 3-4 layers. Okay, maybe 2 layers, fine. 3-4 layers, maybe a question mark. If you're using icons, use icons that are recognizable and also universally accepted. Just because there are beautiful icons, we shouldn't be putting the icons without any labels or any guidance. Now, if you want icons, you can also couple the icon with a label. Otherwise, people will get confused, not knowing how to identify or how to get something done. And there are certain patterns. Now, we'll show you some of these patterns when it comes to navigation bars, and there is something called the bottom bar, top tab, sidebar, things like that. So when you're designing a mobile application, you need to go and understand what are the norms. What is the normal way of doing things? Of course, you can be creative and do something abnormal, but make sure it is user-friendly and intuitive. Otherwise, nobody will understand how to get things done. They will say, this is a very difficult application to use. That is the last thing we want from our customer. And then the hierarchy of the menu should be logical. What does that mean? Hierarchy. Hierarchy is like a map. So the map or the hierarchy should be easy to understand, right? Plus, the most important things, most important actions must be visible without hiding it, in the other place. Now, for example, on an email app, you need to create an email immediately, right? So that icon must be the first icon people need to see. Number two, you need to read email fast as possible. So you can't be hiding that from the screen. So those two must be on the screen all the time on all screens. That's an example. Now, if you look at the to-do application, we want to read the to-do list available for today. What to do today is very, very important. That's the whole point of having a to-do list. And then I also need to be able to add a to-do very quickly. Rather than going to new to-dos and add to-do and all that, I should be able to quickly get it done. If I can do these two, then I will say, right, this application is easy or user-friendly, right? And the last thing is users should not have to hunt for information. Meaning I should know quickly where to find information, right? Now, here are some examples of icons. Now, some icons you see doesn't have a clear text under that. So we assume people know, right? But imagine if your application is used by people who are coming to the smartphone for the first time, maybe, or new people to the smartphone. They will not understand what these little things mean, right? So for them, you may have maybe a text underneath, right? For example, here it says search, cart, profile. Maybe when they select something, you can change the color. Now here, this is blue, all the others are gray. That means you are on the home screen. You can do this also, make it different color along with the text or something like this, very distinguishable. Right, so these are some of the ideas we can do. Here's another one, using again the bottom panel here. Plus, when you press the, this is called the hamburger menu. When you press the hamburger menu, it pops out from the left. It gives a nicely spaced out a menu here. Right, and also if you notice, the main screen is now dim. It's dimmed and the menu is on the top. And the menu itself has some very interesting information. So it says who is logged in and maybe a credit balance or something. I have another arrow if I want to see further information about that. And then I have a bunch of menu items here. At the bottom also, there is another button, another action I can do. Right, so also on the first page itself, I have some very interesting stuff. So the plus button is here, so I can immediately add something. And I can also look at, for example, monthly, weekly, daily, what is going on here, right? So everything is very easy to find. Now, I've shared some websites with you. Let me get that. Okay, so this website I shared with you, top 8 mobile navigation menu design for inspiration. Now, also, when you're looking at these things, please check the date, right? Sometimes you will get 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, not 20, maybe 15, 10 years old stuff. So make sure they are, common as in current. It shows some information. This is called the tabber, classic navigation menu. So there are tabs here. This is the rectangular grid navigation. So you have a grid, you can go left and right, and also top and bottom. This is a very famous one, the drawer. Where I click on the icon, it pops up something, and then you can close it. This is another interesting one. You click on the middle and it expands to the left and right, and you can click icons from there. You can see there are very subtle animation, nice color matching, all that, right? Taking up the screen. So this is user experience, making it easy and fun for the user to use. And this is from Android Guide. This is called the action button. You click that, it pops up a set of icons, and then from there you can use it. And also, if you notice, the background is dimmed, so your focus is there, like here. You click the button, you get a bunch of icons, and the background is dim. So now your focus can be the icons. Here's another one. On the top, we see the tabs. And here very clearly you can see the plus sign. And click any of these to view it. You can also search here on the top. So the screen is very simple to understand. And there's another one I shared. Mobile navigation design, example and pattern. So this is, it is 29 June, I don't know which year, probably this year, right? So a couple of points. Make the navigation understandable, easy to read. There is a visual hierarchy, icons, the same thing I was talking about. See, reading these articles will give you inspiration for your design. So at this stage, we shouldn't worry about how to do this. We should worry about what to do. Remember that. How to do, we will find later. What to do is where you start thinking about what is required and what to do. Here's another interface. You see how the animation and the movement and the visual elements are making it very easy to do. It's a rather detailed one. Another one where you click one icon here, it expands the rest of it, right? And you click further to expand to the right. Here's another one, very user-friendly menu or navigation system for the menus, right? So if you use Google Maps, you may have seen sometimes it's not very easy to switch between locations and things like that. So this is a easy way to do the same thing. These are some more examples. So you can install some of these things and then see how they have done the interface. Here's another one, right? A shopping cart application. So these are some examples, by the way, for you to understand these things. I'll also share some of these things in the LMS so you can go have a look at it. This is another interesting one, but look, this is 2019. Okay, why I'm saying this is things change and devices get sophisticated and there may be new trends, a new way of doing things happen. So when you're reading these things saying latest UX, most beautiful, most user-friendly, check the date. It may be great during that time, but maybe not now, right? So this is also interesting. We'll see in later how people use the mobile phone and why this is important to us, because our interface has a very big impact on this. If someone is using the phone like this, see, it's 49%. Okay, so we need to make sure it's easy for them to use our interface while they're holding the phone like this. So in that, you can see the areas. Reachable is here. Comfort level is here. This is a small phone, this is a big phone. Right? Now look at how Facebook changed their interface. They had icons on the top. Now they brought the icon to the bottom, including the menu icon here on the left-hand side. Because search is the most used one, they have put it here to the right-hand side because very easy to use. And then the messenger is next and the camera after that. So that way, in fact, you do this by researching many times. And on the top, you have rarely used things. Right? So here's another one. Very nice concept on navigation. So there is a search bar. You can expand the menu and then you can also bring it down. That's another interesting concept. So my advice is, before you design your own, please go check out what is already done in the industry, so that we get an idea about good ones, not so good ones, bad ones, everything. Next up is something called responsive design. Now, what does that mean? Responsive design is about designing your user interface so that it works on multiple devices the same way. Actually, it's not a huge problem on mobile phone, because generally they all looks the same, although resolution is different. This is actually a serious problem when it comes to desktop websites and applications. But having said that, the problem is the same. Responsive design problem is the same. How do you make sure things flow automatically? Now, for example, if your device has, let's say, 600 pixel width, your device, and you're designing for 600 pixel width. But when you launch it, you realize there are people who have 700 pixel width or 1000 pixel width. Now, how do you adjust it? Are you going to put that onto the center of the screen and then keep the left and right blank? Or are you going to adjust it to the entire width so that it looks like it's designed for that mobile application? So that is responsive design. So when you design the user interface, you need to make sure you test it on multiple platforms, multiple devices. Then you might think, okay, I have only one device, what can I do? Well, I'll show you when we get into Android Studio, you can generate multiple devices, virtual devices. You can create Apples, you can create Androids, Samsungs, you name it. You can create anything you want. So advice is, at least create 3 devices, a very low power device, as in a device with low specs, like smaller screen, low memory, stuff like that, and create another one with high end, high resolution, high setup, and something in the mid range where many people use. And try your application on all 3 devices. If it works in all 3, fantastic, right? You may have to do small adjustments on screens, button sizes, and stuff like that. But once you get it right, you have a larger audience for your application. So when you are doing that, you need to do a couple of things. One is prioritizing your content, right? So you might have a long list, but which one you want to show them first? Bring it to the top. Yeah. So that way, even the smaller device will see them first. Otherwise, they will have to scroll down to see what is going on there. And another problem we see with the small devices is spaces. If you notice the previous layout, look at the sidebar. A lot of space is given, right? This is not wasted. There, if you notice, it is spaced out from top to bottom very nicely. Now, here, the idea is giving readable space. We call it a breathing space. So that's very, very important. Now, like I said, the problem when it comes to web design is, how do you show it on a large screen, a laptop screen, a tab, and then a mobile phone, right? So in web design, we use responsive design in a heavy note. We use something called media query. Now, if you notice very carefully, you see the large screen and the laptop, and also the tab, this tab, at least they look the same. But you rotate the tab upside down. Now, this is called the portrait mode. This is called the portrait mode. This is called the landscape mode. Under portrait mode, you notice things are different. And also on the phone, things are very different. Now, these 4 or a couple of icons that you see on the left now become individual panels. Okay. So you see the difference here, isn't it? That's responsive design. So we are looking at best practices when it comes to user interface design. The next one is called the efficient onboarding. What is onboarding? Onboarding is about training the user or teaching the user what this application does and how it works. Okay, so how do you do it? Well, when they start the application for the first time, we give them a chance to understand how things work. So it might be the menu, it might be the buttons, it might be anything for that matter. So we take them through some screens. Of course, you can't be giving them like a hour-long training. Pick up the most important ones and show them how to use. Okay. Here's an example. You may have seen apps like this, right? So here it says next, next, and get started. And if you notice carefully, there are three little, what do I say, dots here. Yeah. So every time you click next, a dot advances, and then it goes to the last dot at the last step. So we know there are three steps here. And every time you go through each one, you see where you are. You can click the dot and go back to the previous one if you want. This is just a sample screen. That's why the dots are not moving. But I guess you get the idea, right? So this has to be shown only one time. Don't show it every time when they start the application. So if they want to go back to this later, you need to give them a way, like it can be under help or about us or something like that. But don't show it all the time. Show it one time and that's it. Then hide it. So make sure minimize the amount of information and steps required during the onboarding. Right? So minimize it. Don't have lots of steps. And you need to make sure, okay, what are the most important things we want the user to do under this application? Next is a very, very important part. Clear and consistent UI. Right? What do you mean by that? Consistency means same thing throughout. So you can't be having a pink color home page and a blue color something inside. Or you can't have a plus sign on the bottom left in the one screen and another one on the bottom right. You can't do that. So people get confused. Right? That is not creativity. Our objective is to allow users to use the application with minimum effort without learning the button, where the button, it was here, now it's missing, where is the button now? So if they start thinking like that, they won't use the application. They will think, oh, this is very difficult to use, right? Don't let them think. That's the idea here. Now, in order to do that, we will do this later. Also, we use something called the navigation map, right? So when you have your navigation map, all the screens on screen available to see you, you know where the inconsistencies are. When you see everything at once, you will see, right, I have a button here on the bottom, but hey, that button is moved to the left somewhere here. So now you know where the inconsistency is. So you can go and quickly change it. Now to do this, you need a certain application that support this. We'll be using an application called Figma. It's free and it's a fantastic tool used by a lot of professionals. There is also another one, Adobe XD. So there are lots of applications like that available. There is Microsoft Visio. There is Google Draw, a lot of stuff. But we'll be using Figma to design some of the things like this and to understand whether there are any inconsistencies in our UI design. So the next up is another very, very important one. Right? The font. So what does that mean? Because just because there are fonts, people start using all the fonts out there. But the thing is, you need to control the number of fonts you're using in the app. Try to keep one, if possible, one font for the whole app. If you must, use two. That's it. Do not go beyond two. Maybe three if you also want to bring in like a fix with font, but that's all. Do not bombard with fonts. Why? See, we are learning the app. When you are using, we are learning the app. And when you are reading, we are also learning the shape of the letters. We are following the shape of the letters, right? And if you keep changing the shape by changing the font, it becomes very difficult for people to understand what is there. So they may not see it obviously, but it works in the back of their mind. So it becomes difficult for them to understand or read because it requires some effort to do so. So don't change the font all the time. Stick with something. Okay, so let's look at some of the most famous mobile fonts. Some are okay for Apple, some are okay for Android. But this list shows some of the most famous fonts. Let me share you another web on this. There are a lot of articles written about which font to use, which font not to use, things like that, right? So this one talks about two concepts. One is called serif font and a sans serif font. Now, a serif font has these little things like here. Adobe Garamond font has little thing at the end of the letters, right? This one, Bakersfield, also has these little things called the serifs. Here's another one, Georgia, right? This one doesn't have the serif. This is called Trebuchet. This is a Microsoft font. They specifically design it for web, but we can also use it for mobile. Now here's another one, Open Sans, beautiful font, again from Google. They have different width and thicknesses and stuff like that. Now, for example, this is light 300. This is light 300 italic. This is regular 400. 400 italic. Italic means slanted. Bold is, thicker. So this is 600, semi-bold. So when you're selecting a font, you have to say what is the number, what is the weight, and what is the style, right? Roboto is the preferred font from Google for Android. This is the default font, by the way. Not bad, but there may be other good-looking font also. Now here's another a beautiful one. It's with the width is wider. You see, Montserrat is a very nice font. If you want wider width, you can use this. Here's another famous one, Lato. Right? Another nice-looking font as well. And okay, this is an interesting one. This chart shows the popularity of the font. Open Sans is 22% on mobile, 24% on desktop. Whereas the last one, Noto Sans, is 1%, 1% here. So you can see Roboto, Montserrat, Sans Pro, Lato, they're all on the top. Yeah. All on the top. Oh, by the way, Font Awesome is not a font as such, it's an icon. Okay, here are some mistakes people may do. Using too many fonts, using the wrong size. You might have a beautiful font, but very small or very large. But then there is no hard and fast rule to font sizes. There are different ways of giving size on the app design. We rarely use the pixel size. Pixel size is the dot size. What we do is we use a relative size in relation to the width of the screen. What should be the font size? There is something called EM, where we take the default size of the system, whether it is Android or Apple or web, and then we increase that using a multiplier, like 1 time, 2 time, 1.5 times, like that. That way, whatever the font size user has set on their device, we are taking as a base and then changing the size. Otherwise, if we say 10 pixel on a very large screen, 10 pixel is very, very small, very tiny. On a very small screen, 10 pixel is very large, right? So we should be using fixed pixel sizes for font. And another one, don't use illegible font. What does that mean? Do we have even illegible fonts? Yeah, there are, right? Now, if I take you to the font catalog of Google, see, these are the fonts Google is giving. These are called web fonts. There are all kinds of fonts available here. Many languages also, right? Some are looking good. Some may not be suitable for reading. They're okay for, a little bit, like say this one, Alumni Sans. So they're thick, but they're okay for titles, but not for body. Now here's another one like that. Titilium Web. So it's a, if you look at the angles, they're very different. So there are lots of fonts. Right, and here's another one. This is called a slab serif. Different kinds of Arabic, Tamil, Sinhalese. So this one, for example, some people like it, some people don't. This is called a script type. Now, this is called a fixed width, right? Suitable for source code, but absolutely not for the body text. Here's another one like that. So there are all kinds of fonts available. You've got to be very careful about which font is suitable for your job. Now, this one is another one. This is another article about how to choose the best UI font for apps. I'm showing these articles here, but I'll also make sure it is added to the LMS so you can go through these articles leisurely, right? So how to choose? The goal, the mood, comfortability, and the size. These are some of the things you need to use or look for when you're designing or deciding on a font. Here are some examples. So the body means the main text, right? Try to look at where you are getting 16 to 17 pixels. Now, I said not to use pixels, but you can start with the pixel and see how it looks on the device, and then replace that with other relative font sizes. So this is for body, text input, and also secondary text. Secondary text is part of the main text. Right. 10 universal fonts for apps. Open Sans, I think we saw the list, right? These are examples using those Open Sans. Here's another one. Montserrat is another beautiful one. See, this is a website design using this font. Here's another one. This is the recommended font from Google for mobile apps. And this is something designed using that font. You see, they've coupled the font with another. So there are, you can see two fonts used, like here. Right? Here's another nice one, Proxima Nova. Right? These are examples designed using this font. Another good one, Poppin. very famous on Apple. Azmeer is another one as well. This is again an Apple font, San Francisco. This is another beautiful font, has lots of weights. This is a special font. It's a questionable as to where to use it, but there are situations where you can use it for some designs. You notice they've coupled that with other font, right? They use that font for titles and a sans serif font for the body. Another serif font, Sebon. Right. So these are some examples of how to use or choose a font. There are also lots of discussions about the sizing of the font and how big it should be, stuff like that. So this article talks about how to improving mobile font size for readability. Readability is very, very important because we need to be able to read what is on the screen, right? Otherwise, the all right. So this chart talks about what is suitable for what site of devices. Now, extra small to medium to very large. How much size is preferred, right? So this is a interesting picture. It says this is called the display text. This is called the body text. This is called the functional text. You see, we have only 3 styles here, right? So if you can stick with these 3, then it's very good. Throughout the program, you have only 3 styles rather than having multiple headers and whatnot. If you can control that to at least 3, that should be good. Maybe it may not be possible, but sometimes you can do. Anyways, I'll share these articles for you to have a look. Oh, we'll get to this about Android and Apple. They have their standards, so we need to study them as well. On the phone, you can, because some people might think the text size is too small. Generally, it is automatic, but you can also manually change it as well. Right, so that's on the readability and also about the font size. Here's another one when it comes to readability. Look at what is on the left and the right. On the left is a typical web kind of interface where we are showing, this is called a wizard interface, where we are showing all the steps. So there are 4 steps. We are in number 2. We are done number 1, we are done number 2, and then we are going to number 3 and 4. And we have a standard form element and 2 buttons here. The same thing can be transformed to this interface here on the mobile phone, because showing this little text might not be easy to read for people. So rather than doing that, how about doing this here? Shipping information, we are on step number 2. And then we're showing next is billing address. We are not interested in the previous one. If you want, you can go back. We need to know what is next. And here it is using the space in a very nice way than here. So that's why I said you need to keep on looking at other applications, how other people have done it, to get a lot of inspiration when it comes to designing the UI. Next up is another important aspect, touch-friendly control. We know the mobile phone, 99% of the input is coming from the touch screen. So how do you make sure it is friendly to the people? let me show you a picture first. If your button looks like this, people might click the wrong button, or people can't see what is on the button, isn't it? So on the mobile phone, we need to make sure the space that you use to click is visible enough so that they will not go and make a mistake by clicking on the wrong button. So you have to space out. You also make it larger, and also contrast. You need to worry about what is in the background also, right? And there are some gestures that we do on the phone, right? It's not only touching. You can pinch, you can zoom, you can swipe. All these things are there. These are called multi-touch also, where you can click with 2 fingers or 3 fingers. So we must understand all these touch features before you design the interface. Let me show you some additional information on this. So these are the different devices we have. So good UI design is user-centric. Users install your app because they need to solve a problem. Designers should think about the problem their users will try to accomplish using the app. Focus on their key goals and remove all the obstacles from their way. Now, that's a very, very important rule, isn't it? They are using the app because there is a problem. So how are you going to help them solve the problem? Wow, look at this. A typical Microsoft Word interface with all the buttons and very little space to type the article. Okay, this is an extreme example, but well, it is an example. All right, so here is a very simple example from Uber. So you can change the pickup location, right, by moving this little pin on the map itself rather than typing something. Make navigation self-evident. What does that mean? People should be able to figure out things easily. Now see, when I click on photos, I see photos. When I click on shared, it's a cloud. When I click on albums, I see albums. Very simple concept, right? And also, what do you mean by seamless experience? Same application on the laptop, because you have a very large screen. You show the icon, you show all the list of songs here. Now you can't do that probably on the phone immediately. They may have to go by clicking some other buttons. So you need to give a consistent sort of look on the tab on the phone and the laptop. When I say consistent, we are talking about colors, we are talking about elements, font, everything. So people may be using the same app on multiple devices. So we need to make sure we are not confusing them. This is the tap-friendly targets. Create control that measure have a size of 7 to 10 millimeters, so they can be accurately tapped within a finger. So 10 millimeter is about 1 centimeter, right? So that is the kind of size we can easily click. And text should be legible. As now here, this is a bad design on the left, and here's a better design. So you notice the text has more space, line space, and the color also much better, because some people use gray color on the gray background. It will be very difficult for older people to read that because they won't see that clearly, right? And this is the line spacing. Here we see better line spacing. Here they're all together. And this is a very bad coloring, because on a sunshine, on the sun outside, it's very difficult to read. This is bad color matching. right? And this is also bad color matching. So if you are showing something in the bad, I don't know whether it is possible for you to see here. There is a gray on gray and gray, light gray on white. Very difficult to read. This is about another one. I think we saw this already. Where to put the control. Now, if it is a single hand use, you shouldn't go beyond this green color area, because that's the most useful area for people. And minimize typing. Now, okay, this is a bad example. The form is so long, you see, very, very long form. Whereas if you can cut down the form size, where you can say, go next, save the part, go to the next form. That way, your form looks much better. Actually, it will be more useful than filling a long form and then saving it. Another one we must do is auto completion, right? So this is another mobile UI component that we can use. So when you start typing, it filters the data and shows you what is possible. So then you don't need to complete typing. You can just click whatever option you have here. And then, of course, test, right? On variety of mobile devices and also on variety of people, right? You have to use it on multiple people and get their user input. You need to ask them, what do you think of this? Or, I mean, observe them and see how they use it. Here's another one on the same subject. Smashing Magazine is an excellent place for all kinds of development usage. Now, I told you to check the date. Now here, this is 2012. Okay, be careful. This article is about finger-friendly design. So if there's anything good, we will take it, no matter whether it's old or not. So this is about a very classic problem. The classic problem is when you go and touch something, you don't know what you are touching. So they say, allow them to touch at the bottom also. So now if you look at the actual target, it's the icon, but your finger is actually under the target, isn't it? Now, this is a classic problem of touching. Can I see what I'm touching, right? So there again, are you touching what is in the middle or the left? Because when you touch, you're actually possible to touch 3 buttons here. Right? So this is called the average pixel width of a finger. Now, this is, remember, coming from 2012. So the screen sizes were small at that time. Now we have high resolution, larger screens now. Right? 2 fingers. So there are a lot of articles on this regard, which I think is you should check once in a while to understand, okay, what is the trend now? What are the new things going on? Right? It's another excellent article on this regard. So it talks about a lot of technical stuff, like how does a touch system work? This article is 2017 again, right? So knowing a little bit of technology is also important. Now, this is how the capacitive touch screen work. Right? Pressure and contact patches is another way it works. Different ways people using the touch screen. This is called the cradle, hold and touch, 2-hand landscape, 1 hand first order, 1 hand second order, 2 hands portrait. Yeah, so different people use it this way. And the accuracy of the screen. center is more accurate. As you go towards the edge, the accuracy also reduces. So that's why you need to be careful about placing buttons and stuff like that on the edges in your UX design. Now, here's another one where people go and touch for the icon. See, you have to give a larger space because people go and touch on all these areas. And the most important areas are spoken here. Right, so I'll share some of these things so you can have a look at that. So that's on the touch-friendly controls. These are the things I was talking about. Swipe rather than scroll. Now on the phone, there is nothing called scroll a button. Yeah, you can scroll up and down, but what about swiping? You can also swipe left and right. And then there is a behavior called pinching rather than click to zoom. And also we can keep the cursor visible because, sorry, the cursor is invisible on the mobile phone because unlike the mouse where you can move the cursor, you don't see a cursor on the mobile phone. The cursor is your finger. Your cursor is under your finger. So you need to be careful about how things move and how they click to select things, right? And also on the laptops, we have something called the hovering. Hovering is where when you move the mouse over something, it shows more information. There is no behavior like that for mobile phone because you're not moving a mouse, right? So you have to keep that in mind when you're doing the design. This is the ultimate worst design of a UI. Next one is feedback and confirmation. What does that mean? Whenever the user does something, we have to give a feedback immediately or maybe later. If it is a form, we have to give the form is complete. If they click a button, we need to maybe change the color or have a little animation or do something so that they know they did it. Sometimes even we couple that with sound to give a click sound, right? I'll get to a next one. It's called accessibility. That is also important to some people because they can't see the button clicking, right? And if they make a mistake, we also need to show them that they made a mistake there. Without taking them to so many different places, we need to show them, okay, there's a mistake. Now see here, in this example, the feedback is instant. You click some stars, type something, press a button, you see the reply immediately, right? So that is also very, very important. Is another picture showing instant confirmation. So this is the e-commerce side. When I select something at the bottom, I can see my current total, and then I can press this to buy that item, right? So when I press buy, it brings me here, confirm. So if I confirm, I go to payment and the rest of the screens. Here's another one where when you make something successful, it shows the screen success. Another one, right? So you click on archiving and it shows something here at the bottom saying your action is done. But if you want to reverse it, if you want to undo it, okay, there's a facility for that as well. So this is giving immediate response to the user so that user knows I did this. Next is efficient search and filters. What does that mean? A mobile phone, if it is a complex application, there may be different ways of searching. Now, coming back to our to-do app, you need to search a certain keyword, for example, or you need to search all the office activities or all activities related to mobile application development unit or a private to do things, so family to do things, stuff like that. So you should be able to either use filters or search functions. because that's a very, very important common thing. Now, here is a screen showing two ways of doing that. Number one has lots of stuff here for searching, right? The same thing is simplified here on the right hand side, right? So yeah, they do a search and filters, but there are easier, faster way of doing the same thing as well. Let me show you this. Okay. Few issues. Now look at this. According to Content Square data, filter use is associated with a 35% increase in click-through rate on products. What does that mean in English? Click-through means people clicking and going to the next step. If you have a proper filtering mechanism, you have a 35% of more chance of getting people to buy your product, buy or come to the next step. So filters are very, very important. Now, only 2 to 10% of mobile online shoppers use filter menus compared to 38% of desktop and tablet users. So yeah, mobile users use less, but if you have it, there is a 35% of more chance of getting them. Here are very long, cumbersome filter. You have to browse. Look at the scroll bar. Huge, right? You keep going down to do the filtering. And how are you going to apply multiple filters? Now, that's another tough task, right? Now you can do this. For example, bring the most important one to the top. Like size is used 18% of the time. So give it more prominence. Now, when you put the size on top, you have 18% chance. When you put it to the bottom, it is having 4% of chance. Now, we can't decide randomly. We have to actually design something, give it to the users, and then observe their behavior. So if you're working for a company that is doing mobile applications, they will have a team of people who will be doing this job for you, right? So you may design the UI, and there will be some people when validate that on the users. Now, here, if you look at the right-hand side, it shows all the filters I have selected. Because after pressing the filters, I may not remember what I used for my filtering. Yeah. So here I can see it here. And by pressing the cross, it goes away as well, which is very easy to use. Here, difficult to adjust filters. So you're looking something, and then how do you go back to the filter? So maybe here you can click and then go back to the filters. So these are some things we can look at. I'll share this article also. Some best practices when it comes to navigation. Okay, next up is minimizing the user input. What does that mean? How can you minimize? Well, you can if you start looking around your phone, especially. Now look at this. Mobile phones have smart keyboards, right? Here it says type the credit card, and we are expecting a number. Now, if you show the entire alphabetical keyboard here, that's bad, right? You should show the numeric keypad. Okay, is it possible for us? Yes, it is possible. All you need to do is make sure the input type is numeric, and the system, Android or iOS, will automatically show the correct keyboard there. So as a UX designer, you need to make sure you need to specify the type of data you want, and the operating system will decide what keyboard to show on the screen. right? This is also very important. So there are a couple of keyboards. Now there is a keyboard to type the emails, where you will see the @ sign here. Email to type, keyboard to type the URL, you see HTTP as a button, right? So likewise, there are different keyboards for different input types. Plus, you also need to make sure you're showing the right error message properly on the a place. So let me show you what I mean here, right? This is called form design best practices. You have to show the progress as you move forward. Now see, if it is correct, you show a green color. If it is bad, you show a cross. And then under the field, you show what the error is, right? Also, not to do multi-column form for the mobile phone, because mobile phone has a very small screen. So give a single column every time. And then error messages. Now, there are practices where you can consolidate all the errors into one box. That's bad, because you would know where the error is. Instead, show the error where it occurred. And then group related fields together. So you can group fields according to some form. So for example, here we have personal information. Here we have contact details. So that way, anyone typing it knows exactly what they're getting into. And these are two different styles of form design. For mobile phone, this is the preferred way, putting the label on the top, not on the left. Because by putting on the left, you are giving less space to type to the input element. This is okay for a website, but not okay for a mobile phone. All right, that's on the user input. Next up, loading time. Now you will notice we are talking, very generic or stuff that should be known by people as common sense. Yes, it should be common sense, but you have to go to the details to each element to understand why are we talking here. Now look at this statistics. If your system is 100 milliseconds slow, you are losing 1% of sales. 100 millisecond delay will lead to 1% of sales. If your application is 1 second delay or slow, you are losing 26% of conversion rate. Conversion means what? People who came to see it and then going to the next step. You are losing 26% of those people. If you are delaying 5 seconds to load, you are having a 90% bounce rate. Bounce rate meaning people come to your site, they wait for a couple of seconds, nothing happening, they go away. They never come back to your site or your app. They'll think, okay, this is too slow, right? This is generally, these numbers are spoken about websites, but they are very similar to mobile app as well. So this is all about loading and showing the user something is going on. It's not actually keeping the application ready. No, right? Some people think, they mistake this into thinking we are talking about actual loading. No, there is something called actual loading speed versus knowing, or rather seeing it's getting loaded, right? So you feel like you're fast. You're not actually fast, but you feel like you're fast. That also can be done, right? 4 tricks to make load time feel faster. So you see, feel fast. Number one, never make users wait without giving them feedback. Avoid static progress indicator. Use animated loading indicators. Now, like this. See, when you see this, you know something is going on. If you don't see anything, you think maybe the app is stuck or something. Maybe you will then exit and load again. But if you see this, you know, right, something is going on, right? And this is another one showing percentage of loading. This is also very good because people know what is going on. You are giving them constant feedback, right? And progress bar is another one. So people will wait as long as this is working. Right? So if it gets stuck, it's a very nice animation showing what is going on here. Another one is called skeleton screen, where you show, see, you see low resolution picture and then the high resolution picture is loaded. So we at least know something is coming there, right? So it's called visual distraction. Right? Very subtle animation, so people don't mind waiting. So these are some of the techniques we can use to give them the feeling. Now, application may not be fast. You keep them waiting so that they will go to the next screen. Right? So a couple of things you can do: minimize the images and resource sizes for speedy content delivery. Actually, for mobile apps, you download, so it's all inside the app. So there is nothing to download from the web. But there are times where even the mobile phone, you may have to download some data from the internet. So in that case, you will get into a lot of trouble. We don't know about the internet connectivity speed. We don't know about the sluggishness or the slowness of the phone. We don't have any control over that. So at least if we can give some indication to the person so that they will know what is going on. Next is a very, very important one: accessibility. What does that mean? Making sure anybody and everybody can access your phone app. What do you mean by access? Yeah, they can access. What about people with people who can't hear things? People who are having visual problems, they can't identify colors, or people cannot see small text, right? So there are people like that. So how do you make sure those people can use your application? And then there are people who cannot understand the language used here. So can you localize it, right? So there are a lot of things like that where you need to look for this. And this picture shows you why, right? Statistically, there are 1 billion plus people with disabilities around the world. We have 8 billion people. Out of that 8 billion, 1 billion people have some disability. These people, these disabled people, spend $6.9 trillion annually. Okay, they're not spending that to buy the mobile phone, but this is their spending capacity. That is why we need to make sure our application is accessible. Now, if you look at the American situation, 72% of the disabled people have a smartphone, right? Very good. Now, look at the next one. Out of that, 61% of the people will never come back to the mobile site or the app if it is not accessible. They will label your app as a inaccessible for them. So they'll just never come back to it. So your first time experience has to be very, very smooth, or you're going to lose this 6.9 trillion spending capacity, right? So that's very, very important. Let me show you some stats further there. Right. So this has some things where you need to look for some very good practices. And how to design a mobile app to be accessible. Cognitive impairment. Dyslexia versus ADD, Alzheimer's, visual impairment, color blindness, total blindness, then age-induced hearing loss or ear trauma or deafness. These are issues people are having, a cast or brace, paralysis from trauma. So how can you design something for everybody? Keep layout consistent across screens. That's one. Optimize your app's color contrast because there are colorblind people. Use label to optimize for screen readers. Now, what does that mean? People with visual problems, they can turn on audio feedback, right? Now, the audio feedback system needs to know what is on the screen. We do that by adding text content to your pictures. Your picture will have another additional information about what that picture is. For example, picture of a car, it might say a red color car parked near the park near a beach. There are children playing in the background, something like that. So someone blind looking at it, they can picture it themselves. Include focus states in your design. What does that mean? Focus state shows what is selected right now. Like in here, I click on work, it is showing a box around it. So I know I've selected that. And then offer the ability to zoom. Well, that generally comes from the system they're using. So there's nothing much to do for ourselves. But there are instances where you can actually have a plus button to increase the sizes yourself. And then you have to optimize for audio, video playback as well. In fact, there is an excellent guideline from Apple as well as from Android and also for web called the accessibility guideline. We need to go through that to understand what is going on there. And then, of course, test. Right? You have to test it all the time. Let me see. I think there was a Sri Lankan newspaper. Oh yeah, here it is. You see, this one is a very simple example. I can press this one so that it increases the font size, not the rest of the content. I'm not zooming in using my screen. If I want to read bigger text, I can do so. I'm okay with small one or medium one. See, it is automatically increasing the size without doing any problem to the rest of the content. Right, so that's another very interesting feature. And another one is offline capabilities. What does that mean? Offline meaning people are generally online, but when they're traveling, they may go have short bursts of offline capabilities. Or maybe they are in a conference or something where they can't go online or internet is not working. So even in a situation like that, now take up your to-do list, for example, they should be able to use the to-do list even without the internet, which means you need to store that in the phone memory itself, right? Now here's an example from Google that says they're trying to do a translation, English to French, and internet is not there. Maybe they are in a plane or something, or in a train where internet is not working. So you can download when you're online, right? Not when you're offline. The online you can download. It shows, okay, you can get the translation. It only takes up 20 megabyte of space, right? So if you notice the bottom of this, the green color that says online, offline. See, green color becomes red color, and when the internet comes up, it goes automatically to the online mode. Yeah, so this is also showing the user there. That's a UI example. Here's another one, right? So the kind of people require the offline mode: travel tourism apps, healthcare apps, educational apps, and also field sales staff. So some examples here, they talk about a lot. How can you do it, right? What can you use? Firebase for databases, SQLite, Realm, AWS, AppSync. There are actual products available for offline use that will automatically synchronize your app data when the internet is available. Right? So when you are designing our app, we will also get into some of these things. So for example, you are using your to-do list and you are offline, we want to add a new to-do to the system. So you should be able to add that. And later when you are online, it should be synchronizing that back with the server, right? Google does that already. Google To-Do List does it already. If you use Google Keep, another note-taking app, that also does very well. So you can use the app without the internet, and when you are on the internet, it will automatically synchronize your app with the cloud version or the web version. It's a good article. Why you should work offline also. Competitive edge, customer loyalty, battery power is another big one, in fact, because when you're traveling, it will be looking for data connection and then the battery will go down. So you can turn off the data and use it offline. And then if you are internationally traveling, no roaming charges. Right? These are some of the other additional things. Yeah, data synchronization, frequency and time. Next up is user feedback mechanism. How do you give feedback to the user? Right now here, giving it immediately. This is called the bottom sheet. It comes from the bottom. You type something and say submit, and immediately you get the response in the same place, bottom. And comes security and privacy. Now, this is another very, very important feature, because when you are developing the application, you may, knowing or not knowing, request permission to certain things. Now, let's say you want to take a photograph. So you are asking the application to request authorization from the user to use the camera. What if the user says no? We may not be able to use that, isn't it? So you have to assume that the user will not give, or user may give certain features, or certain, let's say, features of the security system. So how do you handle that? How do you make sure it works, even if they say no, can't give, right? So today we looked at a lot of stuff. Actually, there is a lot more to do, so I don't want to cover everything today. So we looked at things that you need to consider when it comes to usability testing. So we started off by simplifying the navigation. We looked at responsive design. We looked at efficient onboarding. We also looked at clear and consistent UI, readability, touch-friendly control, feedback confirmation, efficient searching, minimize user input, quick load time, accessibility, offline capabilities, and also security and privacy. There are a few more to do, which we will cover next time. So what you need to do now is, with this knowledge that you gain, go back to the drawing board. Let's see, how can we make our to-do app more user-friendly? So last week, I assume you looked at the available application. This week, you can start sketching. Take a pencil and a piece of paper, draw your own version of your to-do app. Now, with the knowledge you gain today, you can figure out, okay, how am I going to give offline capability indication? How am I going to give a navigation bar? How am I going to give various things of that nature? So in order to help you out, I will give you two links. One is about designing for Apple, and the other one is about designing for Android, right? Have a look at these guidelines. That will give you what to do, what not to do, some best practices, things like that. And then you can start sketching your application. So later we will learn Figma, but no harm, you can experiment with it now. But don't start with Figma. That's a big mistake. Do not start with Figma. Start with a pencil and paper and then move to the tool. Okay.